Okay, so just for the record, this is what spring is supposed to look like. Hello, my weird and wonderful human beings, and welcome back. If you are new here, my name is Eve Daniels, and I'm a grad student studying at the University of Linköping in Sweden. And if you're not new here, you might be wondering where I've been. Again, grad school. It's too dang gorgeous to be inside, and I wanted to show you what Sweden looks like when it's actually spring. Recognize this bed behind me, then you will know already that yes, you join me once again in the beautiful Trädgårdsföreningen here in Linköping. I've been working some extremely long days lately. Some of that is because I'm dumb and I double booked myself by taking a 100% time infectious biology course at the same time that I was doing a 100% research project. Some of that is because a recent discovery we made in my research means that we've had to bump up the timeline of my presentation from next October to, 2 weeks from now. So the long and short of it is, I've been busy working long days in the lab, sometimes up to 8 or 10 hours, and even longer days at home, working on weekends, and sometimes working well into the night. This is grad school. That's what you'd expect. Or at least it is in the US. And yet, I've never had to pull an all-nighter. I've always had at least one full day off work every week. I take long breaks to go on walks, clear my head, lay in the sun, and occasionally make the executive decision to take a nap. We even once had a meeting cut short because, and I'm paraphrasing here, but it's too nice to spend today chained to a computer. So they just told us all to go. So why is it that as a grad student in Sweden, I'm able to spend 2 hours out on the porch soaking up some sun, reading some Dean Koontz, completely guilt-free, and yet in the US, that would not have even been a thought in my head? The short answer? Because Sweden. Sweden is commonly cited as being one of the happiest countries on Earth. In fact, it consistently ranks in the top 10, along with Finland, Denmark, Norway, and most other Nordic countries, despite the fact that they all have pitch black and vaguely soul-crushing winters. So what gives? I mean, sure, universal healthcare and access to education are great, but that can't be all of it. The reason why I can spend a couple hours in the afternoon reading on the porch, or sunbathing, or even taking an executive nap in the sun without having to battle the constant urge to check my inbox and voice messages is the same reason why I can take a half day off in the middle of the week without feeling guilty about it. And all of that is because Swedes have a very firm and borderline pathological respect for a healthy work-life balance. In general, and not in every industry and not in every office, but in general, Swedes have a much greater appreciation for a healthy work-life balance than most industries in America. If a meeting is supposed to end at noon, it ends at noon, because people have to go to lunch. Sometimes they're going out for lunch. Whereas in the US, it's not at all uncommon for you to be expected to eat lunch at your desk or just not eat lunch at all. The US obsession with constant connectivity doesn't translate here. I'm not expected to live with my phone attached to my hip or my email account constantly open. I'm under no obligation to answer emails that are sent after business hours, and quite frankly, if someone sends an email after lunch, they don't actually expect a response that day. In fact, I'm expected to be unreachable after office hours and over weekends. People are free to send emails whenever is convenient for them, but no one expects a response before Monday. That's because weekends and holidays are practically considered sacred here. When I suggested to some of my fellow classmates that we have a study group on a Saturday, the Swedes were horrified. And because apparently there aren't enough weekends in the year to go around, we also have about a dozen extra weekend days called Red Days, which as near as I can figure is like a generic bank holiday. No one ever seems to know what they're for, but we don't have classes, most of the shops are closed, and you're expected to go home and just live your life. There's also an entire week in the spring, not Easter break, not spring break. This is something different. And it's been translated as Sports Week, which is apparently the week that you're supposed to take off to go skiing, and I guess ice skating and other snow-related activities. The Floridian in me was confused. Like, I had questions. All of my questions were essentially met with the same answer. When else would you go skiing? The obsession with productivity and trying to cram more and more tasks into every single moment of every waking hour isn't solely an American problem, but America is probably one of the places where that culture is so pervasive and toxic. It's something that a certain Miss Rona pointed out to us with glaring sirens when we were all forced to grind to a halt back in the ye olden days of pre-COVID, but it's also something that other countries and cultures, quite frankly, just have a healthier relationship with. Before, when I said I was busy, it meant that I was working anywhere from 80 to 100 hours a week. If I said I had a lot on my plate, it usually meant I was juggling no less than 5 projects. And when I said I was stressed, it meant that I was about 12 hours away from completely falling apart. And I never gave it a second thought, because it was what was expected. When I started traveling back and forth to Sweden a few years ago, one of the things that drew me here the most was the fact that it always felt like time moved so much slower when I was here. What took me a little longer to figure out was the fact that it wasn't time that was moving slower. It was the fact that I wasn't trying to cram as many tasks, to-do lists, and goals into every waking moment as I do in the States. Now, like when you're trying to cram too many leftovers into a Tupperware container, too much food makes the container seem like it's too small. But the container's not too small. The container is the container. That's how much space you have. Just like a day is a day. Your day is the same thing. It is the length that it is. You can't squeeze more hours out of it if you just try and cram things in fast enough. It doesn't work that way. And the toxic thought process of trying to squeeze more utility out of your day by just cramming as many tasks as possible into those moments is just going to end up with some exploded Tupperware and mashed potatoes on the floor. These days, I still have a lot to do. I'm still busy. I'm still occasionally stressed. But when I say I'm busy, I mean I'm working about a 40-hour work week. When I say I have a lot on my plate, I'm probably bouncing between 2 different projects. And when I say I'm stressed, I know it's time for me to step away from my computer and go take a walk in the sun, because sometimes it's just too nice outside to waste a good day. So, what are my big takeaways from all this? You are not your most recent project, job, or assignment. You're a real, living human being with needs, wants, and limits. Set boundaries that make you happy. I'm okay with working half days on Sundays because I also enjoy taking long walks in the afternoon, going to the park, and Occasionally a nice nap. Be realistic about your time commitments and don't try to cram more into your day or your to-do list than you can handle, or else you're just going to end up with a floor covered in sticky notes and mashed potatoes. Prioritize the things that are important to you, whether that's time spent with loved ones, naps in the sun, or chicken wings with lunch. And if you have to stop and think about whether or not you can handle one more thing being on your plate, remember, if you have to think about it, even if you can fit it into your schedule, doesn't mean that you should. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some important matters to attend to.